Scatter terrain adds so much to your wargaming table. It can take a barren wasteland and turn it into a lush tropical oasis. It can make players think twice about deployment, lines of sight, and movement. And from a storytelling point of view, it can take good terrain and make it truly immersive and memorable. Now, I love playing both sci-fi and fantasy games, which means I get to be a bit left field when it comes to vegetation. We don't use traditional green foliage necessarily, because alien worlds, cursed forests, cyberpunk city gardens, they all offer room to be creative. Today, I'm going to show you a technique for making trees from something you might normally throw away: discarded 3D supports. Now, we can make these work for everything, for our 6mm and 8mm epic scale games, right up to 28mm, 32mm heroic, grimdark, cyberpunk or hard sci-fi settings. Each tree is built from 3 main components: the base, the trunk, and the foliage. Now for this build, I'm using 6mm MDF I had lying around. It's a bit thick for my liking. I usually prefer 3mm, but this is a good example of using what you've got. Now, MDF is solid, it won't warp that easily, and it gives you a foundation for, well, years of gaming use. If you do want thinner bases, but only have thick MDF, you can bevel the edges, like I did with these. So this chamfer softens the edge and helps it blend into your gaming surface. I've also had great results using acrylic sheet. It's nice and thin, it stays rigid, it won't warp, and really helps the base disappear into your mat or board if you treat it with the same color. Another option, well, the larger pieces from something like the Games Workshop Shattered Dominion basing set. They make great irregular shaped bases for trees or clumps. But if you play tournament style games, you'll probably need to stick to standard base sizes for the rules. But for narrative campaigns like mine, I vary the shapes and sizes. It lets me create, well, more natural layouts. One warning: don't use thin card unless you're okay with warping. Here's a perfect example from my retired terrain box. Great piece at the time, but the card base is so warped it's basically unplayable. Rebasing it now would almost take as long as building it in the first place. Okay, now for the fun part, the trunks. If you 3D print a lot, you've probably noticed that the filament supports can have an oddly organic look. The way they grow outwards in spindly strands can be perfect for alien trees. So I tend to separate them out or leave them in clusters, and you've got ready-made sci-fi tree trunks. You might need to trim a bit for height variation, but they already have interesting non-symmetrical shapes. Now, even though this is sci-fi, following some natural rules helps the visual impact. For example, trees of the same variety tend to grow to similar heights in a clump. Taller trees often sit towards the middle, but if you keep them all a similar height, it'll look more natural. Arrange your supports with that in mind, and the piece will look right to the eye, even if it's alien. I glue my trunks down with hot glue. It's quick, it sets solidly enough for the next step. Keep a few miniatures handy, maybe a vehicle or two. Check proportions. You don't need botanical realism here. I tend to make my trees around, well, at least 3 times the height of a standard figure, so they block line of sight effectively, and it gives it that forest canopy feel. Now there are loads of options for foliage, but very few of the good ones are free. I got lucky. A friend gave me a bag of Citadel jungle trees. The really small leaf pieces are perfect for epic scale treetops, while the big ones, well, they suit the larger trunks. You can also try using something like the barbed bracken basing set for foliage on epic scale trees. These are designed for basing, so they're very small, and they look like 6 or 8mm palm foliage, but you'll need a lot of them for a 28mm tree, making the project very expensive. If you don't have something like this, plastic aquarium plants are a solid alternative. They are cheap enough on Amazon or Temu. Trim them down to suit your scale. Bright colours might even work straight out of the box for fantasy or alien settings. But if they're too shiny, hit them with a matte varnish or a light airbrush and just tone them down a little bit. Don't glue the foliage on yet. Paint it separately. It's quicker and the end result is much neater. So what we're going to do is, once we've got the trunk stuck on, we're going to texture the bases with a PVA and sharp sand mix. I get mine from a builder's merchant. The mix of grain sizes works nicely. Use the same texture you've used across the rest of your table. Help visually tie everything together. Make sure you keep the underside of the base clean, saving you headaches later. For painting, I use the same house emulsion colours I've used for my other terrain. That way, everything matches. Seal that base coat well, then dry brush and wash as needed to match your terrain or your miniatures. For these, I dulled down the red soil with sand tones, airbrushed the trunks a pale colour, and added, a hint of pink for a strange world effect. And these trees aren't green. I went with Macragge blue as a base, dry brushed swooping hawk blue, then mixed in beige for the final highlights. And suddenly, the ultramarines colour scheme makes perfect sense. They're going to be camouflaged in this forest. Once everything is dry, glue the foliage to the trunks. Think about natural shapes, or in this case, a comic book jungle shape. I imagine how classic pulp artists sketched tropical forests and aim for those silhouettes. I tend to use Boss Stick here, but hot glue works well too. Avoid super glue. With so little surface area, the join is brittle and can snap off. And that's it. Simple, distinctive, and made from what would otherwise be scrap. So if you've got 3D print supports lying around, try this out. It's fast, fun. The results really stand out on the table. Whether it's an alien grove for epic battles, a jungle for pulp adventures, or a strange bio tree in a cyberpunk sprawl, these will make your game board pop. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more terrain projects. Drop me a comment if you've got other ideas for using 3D print leftovers in Wargames terrain. And until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield.